our usual practice. I will speak English and then Khmer, English and Khmer. Okay. The content won't be much. We most of the content we just discuss on the concept and principle of system administration. Okay. It won't deep dive to the technical details like how you do it. No, just the principle and concepts. So previously we talked about some of the tasks that assist admin have or needs to do or must do. It can be a lot of things. Okay. So those are the tasks that you, if you are working as a sysadmin, needs to keep in mind. Now we will talk more about some of the tasks or responsibility that a sysadmin need to take. Okay, just some more, and then we'll discuss on the services that are needed in the IT infrastructure or system, and then some network service that we will focus or we are going to install and implement in our lab session. Okay. Fun. You know where Arthur is? Oh, Arthur is here. Okay, sorry.
I'm here.
Okay, my apologies. So some of the tasks that most sysadmins usually do are the troubleshooting. Okay, is the most common task that if we work as a sysadmin, has to do most of the time, every day-to-day job. Okay. So troubleshooting happen when there's an issue or some issue coming from user. Okay, coming from user. It can be a lot of things like it can be your network's not working, your IP address is not working, your service is not working. So it's the job of sysadmin to find out what the problem is and fix it. Okay, so that's what we call troubleshooting. Okay, so some of the questions we need to ask, we need to do is first we need to ask some question why it happened, and then try to isolate problem, and then the most common things that sysadmin do is reading logs. So there is always logs, system logs, logging. You know what that is, right? Every activity, every command you execute, every task that you execute are recorded as log in the system. Okay. So if something happen, a sysadmin will need to go back and read those logs. What are the tasks that have been executed? Who did those tasks, etc. etc. Okay. Some user may execute some unusual command, and then we can check that in the log file. Okay. And in the industry or some big organization, they use some common practice like centralized logging. So they record log activity logs from multiple machines. So if there are many computers in the network, they can record those activities in centralized logging. Okay, that's a one topic that you should read more. Okay, on centralized logging. And then if there are a lot of issues being requested from user or employees in a company or organizations, to keep track, okay, because there are many requests to sysadmin every minute, every hour, every day. So if sysadmin want to keep track of those issue and request it, they use something like ticketing system, okay, or bug queue. So there's a ticketing system that accepts those requests on the issue that are being requested to fix. Okay, that's the common practice in system administration. And then there's always, you know, there is always a problem or an issue that are critical and may affect the entire system. And things can go wrong eventually. It always happens. Like for example, like you can see in our case in the case of in our country, ABA banking system, mobile banking, the apps, a few months ago or a few weeks ago, if you remember, the app is not working for entire day, I think. That's a disaster, So when that kind of thing happens, what to do? We need a sysadmin, someone working as a system administrator, need to prepare for recovery. Okay, there are always techniques or some sort of tasks that required to do to to make recovery, and especially we need to back up. We need always to back up our data in the system. So there's always a routine, backup routine that we need to take, as well as the sysadmin here. So that's the task of a system administrator. Okay. And then there's another issue. There's another task that sysadmin need to take into consideration. Need to keep in mind, because a right to be a sysadmin is powerful. Okay, you have a right to be a sysadmin is the highest right. I mean, you can do anything. Okay, so try not to use your sysadmin privilege to do some unnecessary tasks inside a system. Okay, if you are working as a sysadmin, of course, like you browse a website, you don't need to use your right as sysadmin to just browse a website or watching accessing a common document or data inside a directory. So you don't need that kind of privilege. And normally I forgot to insert a picture, one picture here. If you are using a sudo command in a Linux system, for the first time it will prompt a message, like 3 important messages for sysadmin. The first message is about respecting privacy of others. You have a right. You have the right as a sysadmin, then you can see anything. Okay, you can check, you can access any data inside a system. So before you checking information inside users directory, employee informations. You need to respect their privacy, and that's ethic as a core rule of a sysadmin. You know, you have a powerful right, so before you try to access data of some other people, you need to respect their privacy. That's important. And then the second message is about think before you type. So you can make any mistake, right? Accidentally, you can delete the files that cannot be recovered. Accidentally, you can disconnect connection, you know, from a service. So that's also critical inside a system organization that are mission critical, that those services are important to keep running 24/7. So before you type something, think before you type something. Okay, if you are working as a sysadmin. And then there are some tips. If you try to avoid those kind of mistakes, you need to write those kind of actions. If you want to execute some specific tasks or commands, you need to write it step by step. Okay, and it's also useful to serve as a documentation, and then later you can check it, or some other people can check it. Okay, if you are executing a set of commands, usual set of command that you do repeatedly, you can script. Okay, you can write script, and I think you already learned that in the operating system course, scripting. Okay, and then you can just execute script, and then the set of command will be executed. If you are used to that stuff, those same commands, then there won't be any kind of mistake that you make. Okay, អញ្ចឹងចង់និយាយថាយើង type comment បើសិនយើងចិត្ត type អត់បានមើលវាអាចមានបញ្ហា error ឬក៏កំហុសឆ្គងច្រឡំធ្វើនេះធ្វើនោះចឹងមុននឹង type comment អស់ហ្នឹងយើងគួរតែមុននឹងព្យាយាមធ្វើ task អីមួយតែ comment អីចឹងយើងគួរតែសរសេរទុកអូខេរាយជា step ថាធ្វើអីចឹងអូខេធម្មតា specific task យើង execute command តែអីចឹងអូខេស្មើឥឡូវគេអត់វាយ command ច្រើនដងទេយើង execute ជា script អូខេ script វាអាចមានច្រើនមិនកំណត់ត្រឹមតែ script យើងសរសេរក្នុង Linux ទេឥឡូវមានច្រើនទៀតតើតើ automation scripting វាមានតើតើនឹងអីគេ background ហើយនឹង Ansible បើសិនជាយើងធ្លាប់លើអាហ្នឹងយើងអាច explore ពេលក្រោយបានតើតើនឹង automating scripting. Okay, so that's important before you apply changes inside your system. You need to keep in mind that you have the privilege as a sysadmin, and then before making changes you need to be careful. Okay, need to pay more attention. Okay, with great power comes great responsibility, and just as I mentioned, okay, you have the highest responsibility if you are sysadmin, because you can do anything. So mistakes are inevitable. Of course, human errors always happens, and eventually we have to make some mistake. So if we make a mistake, we have to be ready. We have to be prepared to revert, to roll back, okay, to go back to the previous state. And there are some tools in technical aspect. We have some tool to do that. In VMware or virtualization, we have some technique called like storing. I think it's I forgot. You can copy the state and restore in the state, okay, and revert back to some state, okay. It's it's available in visualization software. So if you make a mistake in the configuration in visualization of VMware workstation or the virtual machine, you can revert to a state that you already copied. Or you can store your configuration file on the version control system like Git. It's the same as programming, you know. If you make changes to the file that you're trying to configure, then some error happen, you can revert back to the previous version of your file. That's how you use version control system. Vô em nhầm vậy chị ăn lại. Vô đó thế. Thời gian nhầm gì không ạ?
So clear, teacher.
อันนี้ผมจะหาใช่โอเคចង់និយាយថាយើងតែងតែជួបអារឿងធ្វើខុសអីមួយនៅខាងក្នុង system ហ្នឹងបើសិនជាយើង system វិញការយើងច្រឡំexecute command អីផ្ដេសផ្ដាស់អញ្ចឹងទៅអូខេច្រឡំលុប file អីចឹងយើងអាច revert បាននៅក្នុង technical aspect បានថាក្នុង real practice ហ្មងបានថាយើងអាច revert back to មុនដែលយើងធ្វើខុសហ្នឹង roll back អូខេយើងនៅក្នុង VMware នៅក្នុង virtual machine យើងអាច copy state store state អីទុកអញ្ចឹងបើមិនជាមានបញ្ហាយើងអាច restore state ចាស់មកវិញបានចង់អញ្ចឹងឬក៏យើងអាចតើតន configuration file យើងអាច store វាទុកវានៅក្នុង version control system ដូច Git អីចឹងទៅបើមិនជាមានបញ្ហាយើងអាច revert អាច pull អីទៅ version ចាស់វិញបានអូខេអូខេបានអញ្ចឹង Another practice in applying changes before making mistake is to test to try your configuration or your execution in test environment first. Okay, so we have test environment separate. It can be a separated secondary machine from a primary machine. Okay, you can try test your configuration file, see if it works, and then you can then apply to your primary machine, one machine by one machine, or whole machine inside system. Okay, that's the common practice that the system usually do. So they never actually applying changes inside production server, you know. So there's always a test server. But sometimes if you are working in in a small organization, some downtime maybe not actually, important to some extent. It depends on the service that you are trying to change. So if we think logically, if you try to measure the risk or assessing the risk of a specific service, if its downtime could cause a major issue, so you need to think about the number of users that are using those services. So if the more users using the service, the change that you need to make shouldn't be disruptive, like doesn't work or the service stop, something like that. Okay. อันนี้ចង់និយាយថាករណីខ្លះអា downtime នៃ service ហ្នឹងពីបើសិនជានៅក្នុងករណីខ្លះក្នុង company ដែលតូចអីចឹងមាន service ខ្លះដែល downtime វាដែលមិនសូវជាខ្វល់ប៉ុន្មានទេចង់និយាយថាអញ្ចឹងយើងបើសិនជាយើងចង់ assess risk ថា service ណាdowntime វាដាក់សូវខ្វល់យើងត្រូវពិនិត្យមើលថាមាន user ប្រមាណអ្នកដែលកំពុងតែប្រើ service ហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹងបើសិនជា user ច្រើនដែលកំពុងប្រើ service ហ្នឹងយើងបើសិនជាចង់ change អីមួយយើងត្រូវមិនគួរឲ្យមាន disruptive change ទេតែសុកវាអត់ដែរអីចឹងឬក៏មានបញ្ហាទៅដល់ service ហ្នឹងតែបើអត់សូវមាន user ប្រើ service ហ្នឹងទេអាហ្នឹងយើងអាចគិតថាហ្នឹងវា low risk យើងអាច apply change ភ្លាមហ្មងនៅលើ primary machine អីចឹងចាំនិយាយនេះមាន mission critical service ខ្លះ there are some mission critical services that are important to be mentioned, like authentication services. User needs to log in and log out to be able to do their tasks every second, every minute. So that kind of service is very important. So if it's down, it's very trouble. Okay, it's very disaster if that kind of service go down. So there are some other service like billing service, like a payment service. So it's also important. If it goes down, on a company like e-commerce website, if it goes down, it's very dangerous. Okay, user cannot pay their product, something like that. And then we have also backup service. So backup service also need to be running routinely. If it goes down, you don't someday if you have a disaster that affect your entire files or data, if your backup service wasn't running, and it could cause a lot of problems. Okay. អញ្ចឹងចង់និយាយថាមាន service អានេះខ្ញុំគ្រាន់ចង់ mention service មួយចំនួនដែលវា critical ដូចជា authentication service អញ្ចឹងអាហ្នឹងវាត្រូវដើរគ្រប់វិនាទីអាហ្នឹងថាបើអត់ដើរទេមានបញ្ហាទៅដល់អ្នក log in log out ក្នុង system យើងអូខេបើ log in អត់ចូល log out អញ្ចឹងអាហ្នឹងមានបញ្ហាហើយមានតកតនឹង payment service billing service ហ្នឹងគឺពីច្រើននៅក្នុងករណីតាជា system នៅក្នុង organization ដែលត្រូវការ pay លុយអីចឹងដូច ABA bank អីចឹងអូខេតែគាត់អត់ដើរមួយ pay អត់កើតទាំងអស់អូខេពីចឹងគឺ business ទាំងអស់គឺ run អត់ចេញដល់ពេលគាត់តែ ABA mobile អត់ដើរគឺ nó này tập bankផ្សេង nó vì ប៉ះពាល់ទៅដល់ profit របស់ organization ចឹង ហើយយើងមានជា backup service អាហ្នឹងយើងវាគួរតែដើរជាប្រចាំចង់អញ្ចឹងជាបើសិនជាអត់ដើរសោះអត់ដើរអញ្ចឹងយើងអត់ដឹងថ្ងៃណាមួយ data ច្រឡំលុបចោលឬក៏បាត់អីចឹងមានបញ្ហាអញ្ចឹងយើងអាច recover មកវិញបានហ្នឹងវាមានបញ្ហាដែរអូខេបន្តមកតកតងនឹង nothing to take into consideration is about fixing problems. Okay, here we just want to to show how common practice is being done. If there is a problem and what assessment should do to fix it is to recreate the error. Okay, you're trying to replicate the error and see how it happened. Okay, what steps that you need to execute or you need to do to get to that point, and what is the unexpected result that you might get, the error mistake that you might get from that each step. Okay, and then what should be the expected result. So what should be working, what is the result that you want, and then you compare it, and then you try to troubleshoot it. Okay, you may find the underlying issue around each step, how it happened. Okay, and during those process you need to also document it. Okay, write it or note it somewhere. Okay, and then later you can if you're facing the same issue or facing the same problem, you can solve it as soon as possible. Okay. So for example, in web server, you install a web service, you install a server, and then you execute some command, and then you try to access the website from a client, and yeah, that's that kind of step. So if one step doesn't give you the expected result, like if you are trying to access the website from a specific machine, and then it doesn't show you the website, and then you can try to find the issue around it. So sometimes there can be multiple machine, and then you try to use one machine and it doesn't work, and then you use another machine and it works. So there's something wrong with that specific machine. Okay, so it doesn't have to do with the web service or the server every time. Okay, ចង់ថា ឧទាហរណ៍នៅក្នុងករណី web server. Okay, យើងតម្លើង web server ហើយយើង install service ហើយឲ្យវាដើរហើយយើងព្យាយាម access website យើងតាមរយៈ client. Okay, អញ្ចឹងបើសិនជា client យើង access មកអត់ដើរអាហ្នឹងមកពីគេយើងព្យាយាមធ្វើម្ដងមួយ step ចឹងជួនកាលយើងទៅ access website នោះពីម៉ាស៊ីនផ្សេងដើរអញ្ចឹងម៉ាស៊ីននេះអត់ដើរអញ្ចឹងអាហ្នឹងមកពីគេអញ្ចឹងវាមិនវាមានបញ្ហាឬមានរឿងច្រើនអញ្ចឹងយើងត្រូវព្យាយាមរកបញ្ហាហ្នឹងដោយធ្វើ ព្យាយាម recreate the error ហ្នឹងមកវិញគេយើងធ្វើម្ដងមួយ step ទៅយើងឃើញ error អាហ្នឹងមកពីគេអាហ្នឹងយើងអាចដឹងខ្ញុំដឹងដែរ okay so I think that's all the tasks I mean all the tasks and responsibility of a sysadmin that I can cover here. There can be more. There can be more. Depend on the actual job or actual position that you will take when you're working inside an organization or system as a system administrator. Okay. So next we are going to talk about infrastructure services that they are necessary, that are needed to run, to be able to allow business system to work. Okay, they are required to be installed and then running in business organization. Okay, but first I want to talk about the comparison between visualization and dedicated hardware. So usually we install our server, we put all various every kind of services inside that server, okay, and we install our server in a hardware or computer hardware that are dedicated for a server. Okay, so we have a dedicated hardware, we have dedicated operating system. So dedicated operating system, I mean we can install we can install some services in a usual normal desktop operating system like Ubuntu or Windows 10, but to be able to work, to be able to accommodate many requests to work as a functional server, we need to install dedicated software, dedicated operating system for a server. Like we have Ubuntu server, okay. We have for Linux, we have Ubuntu server. We have many other distributions like Debian, CentOS. We have Red Hat, okay. So many kind of dedicated operating system. And in Windows, we have Windows Server. Yeah, Windows Server 2016 or 19, etc., etc. And for Mac OS, actually, we also have Mac OS server, but I don't really know much about that kind of OS server. So that's the dedicated operating system for a server. And then we have a dedicated hardware. So we have a specific computer specifically built for running server. Okay. It can have usually it has different specs, different specification from a user laptop or user computer. Sometimes it has different CPU, GPU, RAM. Okay, so it built specifically for running a server. So that's called a dedicated hardware for a server. And then now we are trying to compare that dedicated hardware, if we are using dedicated hardware, and visualization. Okay, so this day we try, visualization is used everywhere. Okay, so now I'm trying to compare these two options. Okay, so the benefit, the pros and cons, maybe I didn't cover all here, but some important points I want to talk about, like why we need to use a visualization. Okay, so the benefit that visualization has over the dedicated hardware is it can run many services just inside many. I mean, here is virtual instances, not virtual instance. Okay. So we can have many virtual instances running many kind of services. If we are using dedicated hardware, I mean, if we have only one hardware, we need to put every services inside just one dedicated hardware. Okay. But if we're using visualization, we're using virtual machine, then we can install many virtual machine and then put one service for one machine, one service for one machine, something like that. And then it can, I mean, it can separate the workload for the resource that we have, you know. So we can separate CPU resource, RAM resource for just one virtual machine. We don't need to use all resource just for one dedicated hardware to run many kind of services. អាហ្នឹងខ្ញុំចង់និយាយថាប្រៀបធៀបរវាង visualization ហើយនិង hardware dedicated computer ដែលយើង run server ហ្នឹងឥឡូវគេនិយមប្រើ VMware អូខេ virtual machine អញ្ចឹងគុណសម្បត្តិនៃការ run virtual machine ហ្នឹងគឺបានន័យថាយើងអាចដាក់ service ផ្សេងៗហ្នឹងនៅក្នុងvirtual machine តែមួយអូខេអញ្ចឹងបានតែយើងអាចចែក resource ឲ្យវាប្រើដលៃវាអត់ម្ដុំតែមួយ hardware ទៀតទេអញ្ចឹងវាអត់ workload ទៅលើ hardware តែមួយទេអញ្ចឹងបើ service ណាអត់សូវប្រើហ្នឹងយើងអាចបន្សំ resource បានតាមហ្នឹងអូខេមួយទៀតគឺតកតង performance. So the performance obviously the hardware has the dedicated hardware should have better performance than virtual machine because it has whole resource. Okay, one dedicated resource for one service, something like that. So it has better performance. And then for the cost, usually we know hardware would be more expensive. Okay? If we are buying a single piece of hardware, then it will be expensive than running virtual machine inside a computer, something like that. But these days we don't really use actual dedicated hardware. Most organizations they use cloud. Okay, so everything is running on cloud right now. I mean some other machine inside the internet. Okay, we don't use our own machine. And for the maintenance services, for the maintenance part, obviously the maintenance is easier to do on a virtualized server. Okay, you can move it anywhere you want. Okay, if a single virtual machine doesn't work, and then you can copy it and then run it on a different hardware, and then it's easier to do than when something happen on a single piece of hardware. Okay, so if you are running your services on just one dedicated hardware, if that hardware goes wrong, it could be very problematic. អានេះខ្ញុំចង់និយាយថាអានោះតើតើ performance and cost ហ្នឹងយើងដឹងតែតើតើ maintenance Vậy tham maintenance យើងស្រួលធ្វើជាងនៅក្នុង visualization អូខេក្នុង virtual machine បើសិនជាមានបញ្ហាលើ service ឬក៏ virtual machine អត់ដើរយើងអាចcopy ឬក៏ move virtual machine ហ្នឹងទៅកន្លែងផ្សេង hardware ផ្សេងឬក៏ computer ផ្សេងចឹងទៅបើសិនបើយើងមិននៅលើ hardware ហ្នឹងវាពិបាកដោយសារតែបើសិនជា hardware អត់ដើរយើងធ្វើអត់ចេញទេអូខេតោះតែយើងមាន hardware ថ្មីយើងមាន hardware ឬក៏ server មួយទៀតដែល run redundant server ដូចគ្នាហ្នឹងអូខេ redundant hardware redundant server ដែល run មាន service ដូចគ្នា install service ដូចគ្នា run ដូចគ្នាអានេះគឺតកតងនឹង visualization so that means the point here is visualization is also important. It's a part of important infrastructure services in this day. Okay, this day inside the company or organization system. And then we have physical infrastructure services. Some important physical, I mean, physically need to be done. Okay, so I will mention some of the services and then introduce some of the solution in the cloud technology. So the first thing that you usually do is setting up hardware, installing and updating security on your server operating system. Okay, so that's the normal infrastructure service that you usually do as a sysadmin. But if you don't want to do all this job, okay, I mean to do all that job on a physical hardware, and then we have cloud, okay, cloud solution. These days it's called infrastructure as a service. I think you will learn more. You will learn more in detail in the cloud computing in year 5, right? Yeah, year 5. So in IaaS, they already have set up specification, set up hardware. I mean not hardware, the machine that are already running, and you can use it immediately. And then everything is updated. Every operating system already installed. Hardware, you can choose the specification, the size, the type of the I mean the resource that you want to use, like CPU, RAM, etc. Okay. And then we have network services like you need to set up your IP address subnetting, because usually inside organization you will have many networks, not just one network. You will need to set up IP, installing DHCP server, something like that. Okay, set subnetting your IP address to have many network. So that's the job of a sysadmin. And if you don't want to do those kind of tasks, okay, on a physical infrastructure, we have cloud solution, network as a service. Okay. So everything is done on the cloud, on the internet. You don't need to, go to one machine by one machine inside inside your server rooms. Okay. Inside your organization network. And then also we need to install, set up some softwares that's going to use by our user, our employees, like document, what editor like Microsoft Word, Office, or spreadsheet, Excel, something like that. Okay, those necessary software or program that will be installed for the productivity of the company. So this day, the cloud service, it's called software as a service. Okay. We have, I think we have Microsoft Office 365. Okay. That's the license version. Okay. Microsoft 365, Microsoft Office 365, and for the Google service, we have Google G Suite, I think. Google G Suite. So you can use Google Doc, Google Slide, Google Sheet if you don't want to use install Microsoft Office inside your computer. Okay. Of course it depends on the organization if they can afford to pay those kind of services. And then we have so some companies, some organizations need to, especially in IT company, we need to have environment set up specifically for the programming development, software development. Okay. You have many kind of services, many kind of software, many kind of platform need to be installed before you can program and then build your software, okay, inside company. Like database, okay, database, and then something else like microservice, okay, if you are using microservice. So for the cloud solution, we have platform as a service. Okay. So if you're using cloud, PaaS, you don't need. I mean, you don't need to keep installing those environment on each computer on the network. Okay. Everything is installed and configured. Okay. You don't need to keep repeatedly do the same thing every time on the computer to have a environmental setup to be able to program your software. And then another service is Active Directory service. Okay, that for the file management, directory management, accessing file, managing file, setting up user permission, group permission, something like that. Okay. So in the cloud technology, there's also the same kind of service. We have directory as a service, or DAS. ចឹងតកតងនឹង service infrastructure service ជាធម្មតាយើងធ្វើជាបើសិនយើងអត់ប្រើ cloud យើងធ្វើ physical ហ្មងអញ្ចឹងយើងត្រូវធ្វើនៅលើ machine ផ្ទាល់ចឹងអីចឹងយើងមានការតឡើង OS ចាប់តាំងពីការតឡើង OS updating OS ហើយយើងធ្វើលើ machine មកបើសិនយើងអត់ចង់ធ្វើអញ្ចឹងយើងប្រើ cloud យើងរួមឥឡូវគេប្រើតែ cloud ទេបើសិនជា company ធំគេប្រើតែ cloud ទេយើង cloud ហ្នឹងមានឈ្មោះរបស់វាហ្នឹងក៏មាន IaaS មាន NAS SAS អូខេអាហ្នឹងយើងនឹងរៀន detail នៅម៉ោង cloud computing តមកយើងសវិមួយចំនួនយើងទៅ set up IP ដោយសារតែ organization យើងវាមិនមានតែមួយ network ទេវាមានច្រើន network បើសិនជា system នឹងធំ system តូចធំអាស្រ័យទំហំ system អូខេបើសិនជាធំវាមានអាចមាន network ច្រើនអញ្ចឹងទេបើសិនជាមាន network ច្រើនយើងត្រូវអង្គុយ subnet ចែក IP ឲ្យត្រូវអូខេ set IP ដើរ set IP អញ្ចឹងអាហ្នឹងគឺជា service មួយបន្តមកទៀតតើតើនឹង software program ដែល user ត្រូវប្រើអូខេនៅក្នុង network ហ្នឹងយើងមានច្រើនវាមានត្រឹមតែ Microsoft Office ទេវាមានច្រើនផ្សេងទៀតអូខេអញ្ចឹងអាហ្នឹងយើងត្រូវ install ដែរអូខេបើមិនជាអត់ប្រើ cloud ទេយើងត្រូវអង្គុយតម្លើងម្ដងមួយអូខេនៅក្នុង version ទាំងអស់ចឹងបានឥឡូវគេ prefer ប្រើ cloud យើងអត់ចាំបាច់ទៅធ្វើយ៉ាងទៀតទេវា hot អូខេវាធ្វើដើរច្រើនដងតមកវាមានតកតនឹង environmental setup នៅក្នុង software development យើងបើសិនជាក្រុមហ៊ុនធ្វើ software គឺវាធម្មតានៅក្នុង server គេហ្នឹងគឺត្រូវមានបោះមួយចំនួនត្រូវ install configure ឲ្យអញ្ចឹងដើម្បីអាចឲ្យយើងហ្នឹងប្រើ library ប្រើអីបានស្រាប់ៗមកអញ្ចឹងបើសិនជាយើងអត់តម្លើងអស់ហ្នឹងទេយើងអាចប្រើ library ហ្នឹងអស់ library អស់ហ្នឹងឬក៏ push កូដយើងទៅ server ក៏ប្រើហៅ service មកប្រើ API អីចឹងអូខេយើងត្រូវមានអស់ហ្នឹង set up ឲ្យ install ឲ្យ configure ឲ្យលើ server ហើយវាត្រូវ configure install ម្សិលទៀតនៅលើ client ទៀតអូខេនៅលើ computer យើងហ្នឹងអូខេ computer យើងត្រូវសេកូដវា program ហ្នឹងបើសិនយើងអត់ប្រើ cloud យើងត្រូវតម្លើង configure ម៉ាស៊ីនដែលយើងបើសិនយើងប្រើម៉ាស៊ីនថ្មីយើងត្រូវតម្លើង configure ម្សិលទៀតអូខេចឹងបើសិនជាអត់ចង់ធ្វើអញ្ចឹងទេយើងអាចប្រើ cloud បានឥឡូវយើងក៏មាន cloud ដែរ platform as a service ដោយពួកDocker អីគេ Kubernetes អីហ្នឹងអាហ្នឹងពួក cloud ហ្នឹងតមកតើតនឹង Active Directory Service ខាងនោះយើងដឹងទេតើតនឹង Active Directory តើតនឹង Directory Management file management user permission អីហ្នឹងអូខេអាហ្នឹងយើងធ្លាប់ធ្វើហើយចែក permission ឲ្យ user ហើយណាគេអាច access directory នេះបានណាគេអត់អាច access directory នេះបានចឹងហ្នឹងក៏ជា service មួយធំដែរអូខេហើយពីច្រើនយើងនៅក្នុង Windows យើងប្រើ Active Directory មកហ្នឹងគេហៅ Active Directory Windows Server ហើយនៅក្នុង Linux គេហៅ LDAP LLDAP LLDAP Open LDAP ហ្នឹង LLDAP អាហ្នឹងគឺជា Directory Service នៅក្នុង Linux និង Windows តោះណាខ្ញុំនិយាយស្ដាប់យល់ទេស្ដាប់យល់អត់យល់សោះនេះមានការ slide ដែរទៅណាអូខេបន្តមកយើងមានតើនឹង network service អូខេnetwork service នេះខ្ញុំអត់បាន cover ទាំងអស់ទេ and then we have network services that need to be installed and configured inside the system we have many kind of network services that I don't cover all yet in this slide okay I want to talk about only a few of services first some important service that we need to install. So we have NTP service, that's network time protocol. Okay, that's a simple service protocol that need to be installed to synchronize time. Okay, usually our server need to have correct time. Okay, in correct time zone time, because everything is done in real time, and our server is also connected to the internet. So if we have wrong time, it could affect how our service is operating. Okay. Usually we synchronize our time to the internet. So we have NTP, we have this NTP protocol, NTP service. Okay. So if our server install this NTP, and then all our clients inside the network will synchronize the time to the server. Okay. So the whole network will have the same synchronized time. That's the purpose of NTP. I don't have any picture here. Okay. I will try to explain in using graphical support later. Okay. Graphic support. Okay. And then we have DNS. Okay. So that's one important. That's one important service that need to be installed. Need to be have in a server. Okay. So does anyone know how DNS work? If anyone try to explain how DNS work, want to explain how DNS work? You already learned it in network, right? So DNS is domain name system. Okay, domain name system. So what does it do? It actually it's simply translating your name. Okay, your name that you are using, the name of the server. Usually if you are trying to access a website, we type in the name of URL, something like that. So the job of DNS is to translate those kind of names into IP address. Okay, so our machine, our computer only has numbers. I mean, its address only number. So if you want, it doesn't understand the names. Okay, so if you want our clients, or if you want our machine to be able to access to the service, especially the web service on that server, if it has to connect or communicate to the web server, it has to know its IP address. Okay, so in order to know its IP address, that's the job of DNS, to translate the name to IP address, and then it also translates IP address to names. Okay. I think it's the most popular service that I think everyone is familiar of. Okay. So normally, if we want to host our website, we need to have a domain name. Okay, and usually the domain name is stored on with what we call domain name registrar. You need to buy the domain name, okay? So that domain name you usually buy from GoDaddy.com, okay? GoDaddy.com is the one domain name registrar. It's called domain name domain name registrar, okay? And I think it's spelled like this. So basically, all the domain names are stored in that server of domain name registrar. Okay. So if you want the website to have domain name, you have to buy that domain name. And then usually it offers the service of hosting. You can host your website on those registrar, your those hosting server on GoDaddy, something like that. Okay. Or you can host your, I mean, we can host our website on our own server. Then we will configure and install our server as a host server, hosting server. Okay. Toàn đây nhầm vậy. DNS nhưng có thể DNS vì sao máy nhà nó thể nhưng tao nói có khơi là DNS không này thể mới mình này cái score là trong lực đại thì mà nó score nhỉ nó score hay từ vậy detail mà sao tiếp nhưng người thầm đã DNS nó chỉ nhẹ bỏ thẻ mua domain từ chỉ IP thầm đã machine bao giờ server bao giờ nó cứ miền tại IP address đấy ok thầm đã bây giờ trong communicate đi device môi từ device môi đi machine môi nhưng mình thử score address biết thế nhưng mình thử communicate tam là dạng IP address tam network layer ok protocol từng chỉ sẽ ATP protocol lớn network layer ok ATP protocol cứ map web serving rất trong communicate từ score IP address và tại thông đã bây giờ vay visit website mũi nhưng mình vay mua vì nhưng mình từ vay IP đã nhưng vay mua nè chẳng không nói vay mua chẳng mà xin server giống gạo squad mua hơn để cái đã mua tới gạo squad để squad tới IP address vì miền tại IP address vì miền lệ những xin trong access tao mua nhưng miền DNS nặng cái những là DNS server miền DNS service nhưng DNS thằng việc bỏ phải mua hoặc tới chia IP nhưng mua nó sẽ map IP mua nặng chẳng tới vì access tới căn web server các bạn này vô lại nằm vẽ đó là tóm giật là đồng nát nè là này chứ toàn chứ bây giờ thôi để vẽ ăn đang thà ăn đang đà vậy thì xua tỏ số hoạt đang thà cho ăn rồi bây giờ mình phải hát vậy xua hỏi ok chứ là đi đôi điền chứ nhưng vô là Việt Nam mới thấy bây giờ từ láng nhưng từ configure nhưng vô là mọi cái gì có phải nó nhưng thử đặt mua hỏi đặt IP chẳng kìa anh ban chi nhưng ban đơn thả chứ hai đây ban nhưng thử thường chẳng 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 vậy do giờ đơn thả hai đây ban nhưng thử thường chẳng thì sự viên mùi nữa nhưng mà chưa miền DNS map web server okay so we have DNS service for web server, and then we also have DNS for internal networks. Okay. So usually our each computer inside the network has an IP address as well, right? So if we want to communicate to that machine using names, for example, if a machine of a single user, of an employee, like for example, name Sarah, and we want to communicate to that machine, not using IP address, but using name, okay? And then we can install our server. We can install DNS server on our server, and then apply the DNS services in each computer to use that DNS service. And then we have each machine have names and IP address pointed to each other. And then later, if we want to communicate to specific machine using name, and then can just do that. Okay, we no longer need to using IP address. Need to use IP address to, for example, communicate like remote or accessing file from a specific machine, something like that. យើងមាន service DNS service សម្រាប់មួយទៀតគឺ internal network បានន័យថានៅក្នុង network យើងហ្នឹងយើងធម្មតានៅក្នុងម៉ាស៊ីនមួយនៅក្នុង computer មួយនៅក្នុង network យើងហ្នឹងវាមិនមាន IP address តែបើសិនយើងចង់ access ទៅម៉ាស៊ីនហ្នឹងយើងមិនត្រូវវាយ IP វាអូខេប៉ុន្តែបើសិនយើងចង់ប្រើ IP ចង់ប្រើ IP ទេយើងចង់ប្រើឈ្មោះវិញចឹងយើងក៏ធ្វើបានដែរចឹងយើងអាចប្រើឈ្មោះយើងឡើងប្រើ IP យើងប្រើឈ្មោះម្ដងតែឈ្មោះម៉ាស៊ីនហ្នឹងឈ្មោះសារ៉ាអ្នក user នៅ host name នៅលើម៉ាស៊ីនហ្នឹងគឺសារ៉ាអីចឹងទៅយើង access remote ទៅសារ៉ា add អីគេចឹងទៅអូខេយើងឡើងប្រើ IP address ទៀតដែរធម្មតាយើងវាយ IP address វាម៉ាស៊ីនមួយហ្នឹងចឹងចឹងហ្នឹងក៏ជា function នៃ DNS service ដែរតោះណាតោះអីខ្ញុំនិយាយលឺខ្ញុំនិយាយច្បាស់អត់
លឺច្បាស់
Okay. And then we have the DHCP. So I think that's the common service that almost every network system or organization use. Okay. So DHCP is the acronym from Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. That means we assign our host IP address dynamically, no longer static. Okay. So usually we want to set IP, we set up a static IP, but if we don't want to do that on every machine, and then we just need to install the DHCP server, and then the DHCP service will assign automatically the IP address, the subnet mask, the gateway address, the DNS address to the each machine, each computer. DHCP ហ្នឹងយើងស្គាល់តែធ្វើឡើងសាមអាហ្នឹងគេអញ្ចឹងពេលអាសា DHCP ឲ្យ computer មួយវាមានអាសាអីខ្លះមានណាគេអាចឆ្លើយបានដែរHello មានណាគេឆ្លើយបានដែរពេលយើងអាសាពេលយើងមាន DHCP server អញ្ចឹងហើយយើងអាសា DHCP service ឲ្យម៉ាស៊ីនយើងហើយម៉ាស៊ីនយើងបានអីខ្លះអូតូហ្នឹងចាប់ IP អូតូហ្នឹងបាន IP ខ្លះមានអីខ្លះដែលយើងត្រូវ set អូតូឲ្យ divide មួយឬក៏ ម៉ាស៊ីនមួយមានអ្នកគេដឹងទេចឹងមានអីគេមាន IP address IP address របស់ម៉ាស៊ីនហ្នឹងហើយអីទៀត something ម៉ាស់មានតែ something ម៉ាស់ហើយទៀតមាន gateway IP ហើយទៀតមានអីទៀត name server DNS server address អូខេដឹងតែតិចអត់ដឹងខ្ញុំអត់ដឹងថាយកអត់ដឹងចាំមើលធ្វើអឺធ្វើតេស្តមួយចាំមើលធ្វើតេស្តមួយអូខេ I think that's all the content or the topic I can cover today. Any question? Any question? If you don't have question, then for the next session we will cover more on the network services. Okay, some other services like FTP. What else? We have I don't recall it right now. I will try to cover more on the network services. Okay. I think there are some more that I didn't cover here. And then some of the concept of the law of the system design. It's not really a fixed rule or a fixed law. It's just some like tips or advice from experienced system administrator. Okay. Some key point that you need to keep in mind before you try to design your system that I didn't mention here today. Okay. So if you don't have question, I will create a quiz because I forgot about the quiz. Okay. So we have some small quiz that cover on our 2 session, today's session and last week's session. Okay. So let me try to create the quiz first, okay? Because I didn't have time to make the quiz. So maybe it will take around 5 to 10 minutes, and then you can do it until 11. Okay. Any question now you can ask. តន់ណាតន់អីខ្ញុំនិយាយ
តន់ខ
Okay, please wait around 5 minutes. I will try. Let's try to create quiz right now. Uh, oh, can- no. Mm. Mm. Yes.ថ្ងៃយើងជួបគ្នាក្រុម A ថា
ក្រុម A លោកគ្រូ
teacher lab មាន online យ៉ាងច្រើន
ថាម៉េចថាម៉េច
lab មាន offline ហើយនិង online យ៉ាងមែនច្រើន
ហ្នឹងហើយអស់ទៅសាលា
ប៉ុន្តែបើអ្នកនៅខេត្តរៀន online
ហ្នឹងហើយប៉ុន្តែម៉ោងនេះពិបាកតទៅនិយាយគ្នាផ្ទាល់បានទៅកើតយើងទៅ online តែជាពិបាកទៀត អូខេអញ្ចឹងយើងជួបគ្នាលើកទី2ក្រុម A ជួបលើកទី2តែអញ្ចឹងត្រឡប់ធ្វើអីឲ្យហើយណាអា session មុនត្រូវឲ្យទៅត្រូវឲ្យផងខ្ញុំនឹងឆៃ
គ្រូថារបស់យើង error មកយើង
error ក៏គិតតាម error
chơi tại lại bao này chơi
no chấp yeah. Okay. cho trong phép mà tí thì mà check tiếng của tọa sẵn
deadline tháng mấy
ấy đã dù là đọc cho lại nguội không vậy nhau lại cái đi Okay, you can do the quiz until 11:30. I will set up the quiz and deadline. And after this, you can conclude the session and you can leave. Okay, and any question you can ask me later. We will see you in the lab session. We will meet in a lab session this afternoon for group A and tomorrow for group C. Okay, thank you. Don't forget to do a quiz. And we will see you later.
Chàoលោកគ្រូ.
Okay, bye bye.